The bridge of the Zephyrian dreadnought Crimson Talon hummed with quiet efficiency. Commander Vexthal stood before the main display screen, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. His yellow eyes studied the strange signals coming from the unknown world ahead. The signals were unlike anything the Zephyrian Empire had encountered in their conquest of 17 star systems. "Commander, the signals are getting stronger," reported Lieutenant Zaltem from the communication station. Her clawed fingers danced across the control panels. They appeared to be coming from multiple locations on the planet's surface. Vexthal nodded slowly. The planet before them was beautiful in a way that made him uncomfortable. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, with green and brown landmasses scattered between white clouds. It looked peaceful, almost inviting, but something about it felt wrong to his warrior instincts. "What do the scans tell us about this world?" he asked the science officer. Sub-Commander Kethvar looked up from his station, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "The readings are unusual, sir. Gravity is nearly twice what we consider normal for inhabited worlds. The atmosphere contains oxygen levels that would be toxic to most species we know, and the weather patterns." He paused, checking his instruments again. "The weather patterns show massive storms that move across the surface regularly. Any one of these storms would be classified as a natural disaster on our homeworld. Yet there are clearly intelligent signals coming from the surface." Vexthal mused. What kind of species could live in such conditions? Meanwhile, on the human deep space monitoring station Aurora Base, Captain Jake Morrison was having the most exciting day of his career. The station orbited Earth at a safe distance, watching for exactly this kind of event. When the alien ships appeared on his sensors, Jake had to run the scans 3 times to believe what he was seeing. "Lisa, are you getting this?" he called his communications officer. Lisa Harper looked up from her console, her brown hair falling across her face. "If you mean the massive alien fleet that just appeared in our solar system, then yes, I'm getting it." She tried to keep her voice calm, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. "Jake, there are at least 50 ships out there. Some of them are huge." Jake nodded and reached for the emergency communication system. Within minutes, he was connected to Earth's surface, speaking with military commanders and government officials. The conversation was brief but clear. Humanity had been preparing for this possibility for decades. They had protocols in place. "Try to make contact," came the order from General Robert Hayes at the Pentagon. "Use the mathematical sequences we discussed. Let them know we're intelligent and peaceful." Lisa began transmitting. She started with prime numbers, then moved to mathematical constants. The response came faster than expected. The alien ships began broadcasting their own mathematical sequences, followed by simple geometric shapes and basic pictographs. "They're trying to communicate," Lisa said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Look at this, Jake. They're sending images. Simple pictures of their species, their ships, basic concepts." Jake studied the images on his screen. The aliens looked like large lizards that walked on 2 legs. They had 4 eyes and scales that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their ships were massive, clearly built for war, but the messages they sent seemed peaceful enough. "They're requesting permission to send a small group to the planet's surface," Lisa translated after several hours of back-and-forth communication. "They want to meet with our representatives." Jake felt his heart racing. First contact with an alien species. He wondered if he was ready for this, if humanity was ready for this. The aliens seemed powerful. Their ships were clearly advanced beyond anything humans had built, but there was something in their messages that seemed almost cautious. On the Crimson Talon, Commander Vexthal was having similar thoughts. His species had contacted dozens of other intelligent races during their expansion across the galaxy. Usually, first contact was simple. They would arrive, demonstrate their superior technology, and the local species would either submit or be conquered. But something about this situation felt different. "The natives have agreed to meet with us," Lieutenant Zaltem reported. "They're suggesting we land at specific coordinates on their main continent. The location appears to be some kind of natural preserve." "A preserve?" Vexthal asked. "What kind of preserve?" From their transmissions, It seems to be an area where they protect their local wildlife and natural features. They call it Yellowstone National Park. Vexthal found this interesting. Most civilized species lived in carefully controlled environments, with nature pushing the edges of their worlds or eliminated entirely. The fact that these beings maintained preserves suggested they were either very advanced or very primitive, given the hostile nature of their world. He suspected the latter. Very well, he decided. Select 3 scouts for the surface mission. Include Kethvar and 2 of our best warriors. Full environmental suits and heavy armor. We don't know what to expect down there. Sir, Kethvar spoke up from his station. The atmospheric readings suggest the natives breathe the same general mix of gases we do, just in different concentrations. The suits may not be necessary. Better to be prepared, Vexthal replied. This world already seems dangerous enough without taking unnecessary risks. Back on Aurora Base, Jake and Lisa continued their communications with the alien fleet. The more they learned about their visitors, the more impressive they seemed. The aliens called themselves Zephyrians, and they apparently controlled a significant portion of the local galaxy. Their technology was clearly superior to humanity's. Why do you think they want to meet on the surface? Lisa wondered aloud. Why not just invite our representatives up to their ships? Jake thought about it. Maybe it's a test. Maybe they want to see how we live, what our world is really like. Or maybe they're just being polite. Or maybe, Lisa said quietly, they're being careful. Look at their ships, Jake. Those are warships. But they're keeping their distance, and they're asking permission for everything. That's not how conquerors usually behave. Jake nodded. She was right. There was something almost respectful about the aliens' approach. It was as if they were being cautious rather than aggressive. He wondered what that meant. As the alien shuttle prepared to depart for Earth's surface, neither species realized they were about to experience something that would change both of their civilizations forever. The Zephyrians thought they were meeting another primitive species on a harsh but manageable world. The humans thought they were about to meet advanced aliens who would judge their simple planet and find it wanting. Neither group understood that Earth, which humans considered a normal if sometimes challenging home, was about to be revealed as something far more extraordinary than anyone had imagined. The Zephyrian shuttle Steelclaw descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Inside, 3 of the Empire's finest warriors sat in reinforced seats, their environmental suits humming quietly. Subcommander Kethvar checked his equipment one final time, while warriors Dexmo and Centaur reviewed their mission parameters. Remember, Kethvar spoke into his communicator. This is a diplomatic mission. We observe, we learn, and we report back to Commander. The natives have chosen what they call a peaceful location for our meeting. Dexmo, a veteran of 12 campaigns, adjusted his armor plating. Any species that can live on a world with its gravity and atmospheric composition deserves our respect, he said. But I still don't understand why they wanted to meet in a wilderness area instead of their capital city. Perhaps they wish to show us their world's natural beauty, Centaur suggested. She was the youngest of 3, but her combat record was impressive. Many species take pride in their homeworld appearance. The shuttle broke through the cloud layer, and the 3 Zephyrians got their first clear look at the landing site. Below them stretched a landscape unlike anything they had ever seen. Steam rose from the ground in dozens of places, creating white columns against the blue sky. Rivers of water flowed between hills covered in green vegetation. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks white with what appeared to be frozen water. The thermal readings are incredible, Kethvar reported to the Crimson Talon. The ground temperature varies wildly across the landing zone. Some areas register as near boiling, while others are well below freezing. How do the natives survive such extreme conditions? Land at the designated coordinates, came Commander Vexthal's response. Maintain constant communication. If anything seems dangerous, return to ship immediately. The shuttle touched down on a flat area near what appeared to be a small structure. Through the viewports, the Zephyrians could see 2 humans waiting for them. Both figures seemed impossibly small and fragile, wearing only thin layers of clothing despite the planet's harsh conditions. Those must be our contacts, Centaur observed. They don't appear to be wearing any protective equipment. Maybe their environmental suits are more advanced than they appear, Dexmo suggested, though he sounded doubtful. Kethvar activated the shuttle's door mechanism. Let's find out. The moment the doors opened, all three Zephyrians staggered backward. The air that rushed into the shuttle felt like breathing fire. Their environmental suits immediately began filtering the atmosphere, but even the processed air burned their lungs. The gravity hit them like a physical weight, making each movement require tremendous effort. By the ancient stars, Centaur gasped, gripping the doorframe for support. How do they breathe this? Outside the shuttle, Park Ranger Tony Martinez watched with concern, as the three aliens seemed to struggle with simply stepping onto the ground. He had been briefed about the meeting, but nobody had mentioned that the visitors might have trouble with Earth's environment. Are they okay? Asked Dr. Amy Foster, the biologist who had volunteered to help with first contact. She carried a tablet with basic translation software and a collection of Earth images to help with communication. Tony shrugged. Maybe they come from a planet with lighter gravity. We should probably give them a moment to adjust. The three Zephyrians slowly made their way out of the shuttle, each step a monumental effort. Their suits registered the atmospheric composition as breathable but highly concentrated. The oxygen levels were nearly toxic, while other gases that should have been present were almost completely absent. Greetings, Tony called out, speaking slowly and clearly. He raised his hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Welcome to Earth. I'm Tony Martinez, and this is Dr. Amy Foster. Kethvar activated his suit's translation system. After a moment, he managed to respond in heavily accented English. Greetings, humans. I am Subcommander Kethvar. These are warriors Dexmol and Centaur. Great to meet you, Amy said with a warm smile. We're in Yellowstone National Park. It's one of our protected wilderness areas. We thought it would be a nice, peaceful place for our first meeting. The word peaceful was still being processed by the translation system when the ground beneath their feet began to rumble. The Zephyrians immediately drew their weapons, scanning for threats. Their suits detected seismic activity equivalent to a minor artillery bombardment. Earthquake. Centaur asked, bracing herself against the shuttle. Oh, that's just Old Faithful, Tony said casually, pointing to a small hill about 200 meters away. She's about to blow. Pretty spectacular sight, actually. Before the aliens could ask what he meant, the hill exploded. A column of superheated water and steam shot nearly 200 feet into the air with the force of a rocket launch. The sound was like a continuous thunderclap. The Zephyrian suits registered temperatures that would melt their armor and pressure readings that indicated a massive explosion. Yet the two humans just stood there, watching the display with obvious pleasure. Beautiful, isn't it? Amy commented. Old Faithful erupts about every 90 minutes. The water temperature reaches over 200 degrees. That's hot enough to cook food instantly. Dexmol stared at the geyser in horror. You live near this? This volcanic activity. Oh, this isn't volcanic, Tony corrected helpfully. Well, not directly. The whole park sits on top of a supervolcano, but that's been quiet for about 70,000 years. These are just geothermal features. We have thousands of them throughout the park. The translation system struggled with the concept of a supervolcano. When it finally processed information, all three Zephyrians took an involuntary step backward. Supervolcano? Kethvar repeated weakly. Sure, Amy said. Yellowstone is basically a giant volcanic caldera. If it ever erupted, it would probably affect the climate of the entire planet. But don't worry, the chances of that happening anytime soon are very small. The aliens were still processing this information when they heard a sound that made their blood freeze. A deep, rumbling growl echoed from the forest behind them. Their suits immediately identified it as a territorial challenge from a large predator. Oh, look, Tony said, pulling a small device from his pocket. There's a grizzly bear. Probably a male, judging by the size. We should move along. They can get a bit cranky this time of year. The creature that emerged from the trees was a nightmare made flesh. It stood nearly 4 feet tall at the shoulder, its massive body covered in thick brown fur. Muscles rippled under its coat as it moved, and its claws were longer than Zephyrian combat knives. The bear's small eyes fixed on the group, and it rose up on its hind legs, revealing its true size. Standing upright, it towered over even the tall Zephyrians. "Magnificent specimen," Amy whispered, raising her tablet to take pictures. "Probably weighs around 800 pounds. Look at those claws. They're perfect for digging through fallen logs to find insects." Centaur's hand moved toward her plasma rifle. "Should we eliminate the threat?" "Threat?" Tony looked surprised. "He's not threatening anyone. He's just curious. Bears are actually pretty peaceful unless you bother them or get between them and their cubs." The bear dropped back to all fours and began walking toward them with a casual gait that belied its terrifying appearance. The Zephyrians watched in frozen horror as this creature, which their suits classified as an apex predator capable of tearing through their armor, approached within 50 meters of the two unarmed humans. Tony clapped his hands loudly. "Hey, bear, move along now." The massive predator looked at him for a moment, then turned and wandered back into the forest as if nothing had happened. "There we go," Tony said cheerfully. "Problem solved. Now, where would you like to start your tour of the park?" The three Zephyrian warriors looked at each other through their helmet visors. They had landed on a world where the ground regularly exploded with volcanic force. The air was barely breathable, and massive predators wandered freely among the inhabitants. Yet the humans seemed to consider this normal, even pleasant. Kethvar opened his communication channel to the Crimson Talon. "Commander," he said quietly, "I think we may have underestimated these humans." After 3 hours in Yellowstone, the Zephyrian scouts were ready to see human civilization. Sub-Commander Kethvar had requested this change through a communication with Captain Jake Morrison on Aurora Base. The aliens hoped that visiting a human city would provide relief from the terrifying wilderness they had just experienced. Jake and Lisa Harper met the group at a small airfield outside the park. The humans had arranged for military transport to take their guests to New York City, which they described as one of Earth's greatest achievements in urban planning and engineering. "You'll love New York," Lisa told the aliens as they boarded the aircraft. "It's home to over 8 million people, and it's one of our most modern cities. Very civilized compared to the wilderness." The Zephyrians settled into their seats, their environmental suits still working hard to filter Earth's atmosphere. The flight would give them a chance to see more of the planet's surface from above. What they saw made their situation assessment even worse. Below them, vast areas of the continent were covered in green vegetation that their scanners identified as completely uncontrolled growth. Forests stretched for hundreds of kilometers with no signs of management or cultivation. Rivers flowed in natural channels instead of being properly channeled through artificial systems. Even more disturbing, they could see evidence of regular forest fires, massive storms, and other natural disasters that have been allowed to reshape the landscape without any apparent intervention. "Do your people not control your planet's surface?" Dexmo asked through the translation system. Jake looked confused by the question. "Control it? We have cities and farms and roads, but most of the planet is just natural. Wild areas, forests, oceans. We like having wilderness areas." "But the dangers," Centaur pointed out. "The predators, the storms, the geological instability. How do you protect your population?" "Well, we build our cities in safe locations, and we have early warning systems for severe weather," Lisa explained. "But honestly, most of Earth is pretty safe if you know what you're doing and take reasonable precautions." The Zephyrians exchanged glances. Their homeworld had been completely terraformed thousands of years ago. Every square meter was controlled, managed, and safe. The idea of allowing vast areas to remain wild was incomprehensible to them. As they approached New York, the aliens got their first look at human urban engineering. Instead of the crystal spires and floating platforms they expected, they saw a massive collection of rectangular structures packed tightly together. The buildings stretched upward for hundreds of meters, creating artificial canyons between them. "Those structures," Kethvar observed, "they appear to be built from primitive materials, stone, metal, and what looks like hardened sand mixtures. Concrete and steel mostly," Jake confirmed. "Some of those buildings have been standing for over a century. We build things to last." The shuttle landed on a platform attached to one of the taller structures. As the doors opened, the Zephyrians were hit by a wall of sound that made them stagger. The noise level was higher than anything they had experienced, including active battlefields. Their suits identified hundreds of different sound sources, creating a continuous roar that would be used as psychological warfare in Zephyrian military operations. "Welcome to Manhattan," Lisa announced cheerfully, apparently unaffected by the acoustic assault. "Rush hour just started, so it's a bit busy." Hayes stepped out onto what Jake called a sidewalk, and the aliens immediately realized they were in the middle of another type of disaster zone. Streams of humans flowed past them at high speed, weaving between each other in patterns that seemed completely chaotic. Vehicles moved along the streets with barely controlled aggression, their primitive engines burning fossil fuels and producing clouds of exhaust. "How many humans live in this area?" Centaur asked, watching the endless flow of people with growing amazement. "In Manhattan? About 1.6 million during the day," Jake replied. "But during business hours, the population swells to over 4 million with commuters from other areas." The numbers were staggering. The entire Zephyrian homeworld had a population of only 2 billion, carefully distributed across the planet's managed surface. This single island contained more people than many of their colony worlds. A construction crew was working on a nearby building, and the noise from their equipment added to the chaos. The Zephyrians watched in fascination as humans operated machinery that tore through solid concrete and steel as if it were soft clay. Sparks flew in all directions, and chunks of debris fell from great heights. Yet the workers continued their tasks, wearing minimal protection. "Is this some kind of military demolition operation?" Dexmol asked. "No, just normal construction work," Lisa explained. "They're renovating the building's facade. Pretty routine stuff." One of the construction workers, a man named Carlos Rodriguez, noticed the strange visitors and waved at them. He was standing on a narrow platform, suspended 20 stories above the street, operating equipment that would be classified as heavy weapons on most worlds. When he finished his current task, he climbed down to meet them. "Hey there," Carlos said, removing his hard hat and safety glasses. "You folks here for the tour? I heard we were getting some VIP visitors today." Jake made introductions, and Carlos shook hands with each of the aliens. His grip was firm enough to register on their pressure sensors, and his hands were scarred from years of manual labor. "What you're doing up there," Kethvar said, pointing to the construction site, "it appears very dangerous." Carlos laughed. "Dangerous? Nah, not really. I mean, you got to be careful with your safety gear, follow the procedures. But I've been doing construction work for 15 years. It's just a job." The aliens watched as other workers continued their tasks high above the street. They moved with casual confidence across narrow beams and platforms, handling tools that had cut through their armor, seemingly unconcerned about the deadly drop below them. "The humans appear to have no fear of heights," Centaur observed quietly to her companions. Their tour continued through the city streets, and each new experience added to their growing amazement. They watched humans consume food and beverages that their suits classified as potentially toxic. A street vendor named Maria Santos offered them samples of her spicy tacos, which contained chemical compounds that would be used as non-lethal weapons in Zephyrian crowd control operations. "Try this," Maria said, holding out a small pepper. "It's a habanero, pretty mild compared to what I usually cook with." The chemical analysis from their suits showed capsaicin concentrations that would cause severe pain to most species. Yet humans regularly consumed these substances for pleasure. They observed a group of human children playing in what was called a playground. The equipment looked like a military obstacle course designed to test agility and strength. Metal structures heated by the sun to temperatures that would cause burns, elevated platforms with no safety barriers, and devices that launched children to the air at velocities that would be considered dangerous on any civilized world. 8-year-old Danny Kim was demonstrating his skills on the monkey bars, swinging from bar to bar with his full body weight supported only by his grip strength. When he reached the end, he dropped to the ground from a height that would require medical attention for most alien species. "Watch this," Danny called out, running toward a structure that launched him down a smooth metal slide. He accelerated to dangerous speeds before flying off the end and landing in a patch of sand. The children, Dexmo said quietly, they appear to be training for combat operations. Combat? Lisa looked confused. No, they're just playing. Having fun. Danny overheard this and ran over to them. His backpack, which he wore casually, weighed more than some adult Zephyrians could lift. Inside were textbooks, supplies, and what appeared to be emergency equipment. Are you really aliens? Danny asked with the direct curiosity of a child. That's so cool. Do you want to see me do a backflip? Before anyone could answer, Danny performed a complex acrobatic maneuver that would challenge trained Zephyrian soldiers. He landed perfectly and grinned up at them. Danny, called a voice from across the playground. Time to come home. That's my mom, Danny explained. I gotta go do my homework. Nice meeting you, aliens. He ran off toward his mother, moving with the effortless speed and endurance that the Zephyrians were beginning to recognize as normal human capabilities. As the day continued, the aliens observed more examples of casual human abilities that defied their understanding. Construction workers who lifted massive weights without mechanical assistance. Police officers who pursued criminals on foot through terrain that would challenge military vehicles. Emergency medical personnel who worked calmly in conditions that would require hazmat suits on other worlds. By evening, as they returned to the transport that would take them back to their shuttle, the three Zephyrian warriors were silent. They had seen enough to understand that their initial assessment of humanity had been completely wrong. These humans lived not just on a dangerous world, but in a civilization that would be classified as a continuous survival exercise by Zephyrian standards. Yet they thrived, creating art and music and literature, raising families, and building a complex society that somehow functioned despite conditions that would destroy most species. Commander, Kethvar reported to Crimson Talon, we need to completely revise our understanding of the species. What they consider normal living conditions will be classified as extreme military training scenarios on our worlds. Explain, came Vexthol's reply. Sir, these humans don't just survive on their planet. They've turned survival into an art form, and they don't even realize how extraordinary they are. Dr. Jennifer Adams has spent most of her career studying alien life forms, though until today, those life forms had only existed in theory and speculation. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had been called in to give the Zephyrian visitors a comprehensive presentation about human evolution and Earth's biological history. The meeting took place in a conference room at the Museum of Natural History in New York. Jennifer had prepared what she considered a basic overview of human development, thinking it would help the aliens understand their new neighbors better. She had no idea that her presentation would fundamentally change how an entire galactic civilization viewed the universe. Before we begin, Jennifer said, setting up her laptop and projector, I'd like to understand what kind of world you come from. It might help me explain things better. Subcommander Kethvar consulted his translation device before responding. Our homeworld, Zephyria Prime, has stable weather patterns, managed ecosystems, and careful population control. The gravity is approximately half of what we experience here, and our atmosphere contains much lower oxygen concentrations. We have eliminated most large predators and dangerous geological features over the past several thousand years. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. That sounds like a very safe, well-planned environment. Earth is quite different. Let me start with some basic facts about our planet's history. She clicked to her first slide, which showed a timeline stretching back billions of years. Earth has experienced 5 major mass extinction events. These are periods when most life on the planet died out completely. The most recent was 66 million years ago, when an asteroid impact killed off most large animals, including the dinosaurs. The 3 Zephyrians shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their suits were still working to filter Earth's atmosphere, but they had at least become accustomed to the crushing gravity. Asteroid impact? Centaur asked. Your world has been struck by large space objects. Multiple times, Jennifer confirmed. The impact that ended the dinosaur age created a crater 150 kilometers wide and temporarily blocked out the sun with debris clouds. But life survived and eventually thrived again. In fact, if that impact hadn't happened, humans might never have evolved. She clicked to the next slide, showing a map of Earth during various ice ages. Earth's climate has also gone through dramatic changes. We had periods where most of the planet was covered in ice, and other periods where it was much warmer than today. During some ice ages, the ice sheets were over a kilometer thick and covered most of the northern continents. How did life survive such extreme climate changes? Dexmo asked. Adaptation. Jennifer replied simply. Species that couldn't adapt died out. Those that could survive passed on their survival traits to their offspring. This process, repeated over millions of years, created the incredible diversity of life we see today. She moved to a slide showing human evolutionary history. Modern humans evolved in Africa about 200,000 years ago, but we didn't develop in a safe, protected environment. Early humans had to compete with some of the most dangerous predators that ever lived. The next image showed a saber-toothed cat, its massive canine teeth clearly visible. Saber-toothed cats were active hunters that specifically targeted large primates like early humans. They had better night vision, stronger muscles, natural weapons, and superior senses. By all logical measures, they should have driven humans to extinction. But obviously they did not, Kethvar observed. No, they didn't. Humans developed something that no other species had. Persistence hunting. We would track prey animals for days or even weeks, following them until they died of exhaustion. We didn't need to be faster or stronger than our prey. We just needed to be more stubborn. Jennifer showed them a video of modern humans demonstrating persistence hunting techniques. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as human runners followed wild animals across vast distances, maintaining a steady pace that would exhaust their mechanical vehicles. But humans are not the fastest species on your world, Centaur pointed out. No, but we're among the best endurance runners. We can maintain a steady pace longer than almost any other mammal. We also developed sophisticated tools, cooperative hunting strategies, and communication systems that allowed us to work together against much larger and more dangerous animals. The presentation continued with examples of human survival in extreme environments. Jennifer showed them footage of humans living in Arctic conditions where temperatures regularly dropped far below freezing, desert regions where water was scarce and temperatures were lethal, and mountain areas where oxygen levels were too low for most species to survive. Some human populations have lived in these extreme environments for thousands of years, Jennifer explained. They've developed biological adaptations that allow them to thrive in conditions that would kill visitors from other regions. Your species adapted biologically to survive in different environments? Kethvar asked. How quickly? Relatively quickly in evolutionary terms. Some populations show measurable adaptations within a few thousand years. For example, humans living at high altitudes have developed larger lung capacity and more efficient oxygen processing. Humans in Arctic regions have different metabolisms that help them survive extreme cold. Jennifer then moved to what she considered the most interesting part of her presentation: human childhood development. Human infants are born completely helpless. They can't walk, feed themselves, or survive without constant care for several years. In most animal species, this would be an evolutionary dead end. She showed them images of human infants and compared them to the young of other species. Most animals are born with basic survival skills already developed. They can walk within hours or days, find food, and avoid predators. Human children can't do any of these things for years. Then how did your species survive? Dexmo asked, clearly confused. Community cooperation and extended parental care. Human adults will risk their lives to protect their children, and entire communities will work together to raise the young. This extended childhood allows human children to learn complex skills, language, and cultural knowledge that individual animals could never develop. The aliens were beginning to understand that they were looking at a completely different evolutionary strategy from anything in their experience. Jennifer's presentation concluded with a section on modern human physical capabilities. She had arranged for 2 military personnel to demonstrate what she called basic human fitness standards. Marine Captain Alex Rivera and Army Sergeant Kate Sullivan entered the conference room in their standard uniforms. Both looked relaxed and friendly, showing no signs of the stress that the Zephyrians felt just from sitting in Earth's gravity. Alex and Kate represent typical human military personnel, Jennifer explained. They'll demonstrate some standard physical training exercises. Alex began with what he called a simple warm-up routine. He dropped to the floor and began performing push-ups, supporting his entire body weight with just his arms. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as he completed 50 repetitions without showing signs of fatigue. Kate demonstrated pull-ups, hanging from a bar and lifting her entire body weight repeatedly using only her grip strength and arm muscles. She made it look effortless. These exercises are part of basic military fitness requirements, Alex explained. Every soldier is expected to meet these minimum standards. Minimum standards? Centaur asked weakly. Sure, Kate replied. This is just the basic level. Special Forces personnel train much harder than this. And this is just strength training. We also do endurance running, obstacle courses, combat training, and survival exercises. Alex showed them some of the equipment used in military training. Weights that exceeded the lifting capacity of Zephyrian power armor, obstacle courses that would challenge their most elite special forces, and weapons that relied on human reflexes and accuracy rather than automated targeting systems. The remarkable thing, Jennifer continued, is that these physical capabilities aren't limited to military personnel. Most healthy humans can perform similar feats. Human children routinely engage in activities that would be considered dangerous training exercises on other worlds. She showed them footage of human sports and recreational activities. Rock climbing, where humans scaled vertical cliffs using only their grip strength and problem-solving skills. Whitewater rafting, where they navigated violent rapids in small boats. Skydiving, where they jumped from aircraft at high altitudes for recreational purposes. You do these things for enjoyment? Kethvar asked, staring at video of humans bungee jumping off bridges. Many people do, Jennifer confirmed. We call them extreme sports, but they're popular recreational activities. Millions of humans participate in activities like this every year. As the presentation ended, the three Zephyrian warriors sat in stunned silence. Everything they had observed over the past 2 days suddenly made sense. These humans weren't unusually brave or reckless. They were product of an evolutionary process that had created a species capable of thriving in conditions that would destroy most other forms of life. Dr. Adams, Kethvar said finally, what you have described suggests that humans are perhaps the most physically capable species in the known galaxy. Jennifer looked surprised. Really? I mean, we're reasonably athletic, but we're not particularly special. Every species evolves to match their environment. Dr. Adams, Centaur said quietly, most species evolve in stable, safe environments. We have never encountered a species that evolved under constant threat from predators, natural disasters, and environmental extremes. What does that mean for our two species? Jennifer asked. The three aliens looked at each other. They were beginning to understand that first contact between humans and the Zephyrian Empire was going to be very different from what anyone had expected. It means, Kethvar replied, that we have much to learn from each other, and perhaps much to reconsider about how we view the galaxy. The return flight to the Crimson Talon was the longest journey of Subcommander Kethvar's military career. His report to Commander Vexthal would change everything the Zephyrian Empire thought they knew about the galaxy. As their shuttle climbed away from Earth's surface, the three warriors watched the planet shrink below them, still trying to process what they had witnessed. Commander, Kethvar spoke into his communicator as soon as they achieved orbit, requesting immediate private conference with senior staff. Classification level, Empire threatening. The response came back immediately. Granted. Report to conference room Alpha upon docking. Within an hour, Kethvar stood before the senior officers of the Crimson Talon, his presentation prepared and his conclusions ready. The holographic display showed images and video recordings from their time on Earth's surface. Honored Commander, he began, I must recommend immediate reclassification of the human homeworld and complete revision of our first contact protocols. Commander Vexthal leaned forward in his chair, his four eyes focusing intently on a subordinate. Explain your reasoning, Subcommander. Sir, Earth must be classified as a Class XI death world, the highest danger rating in our system. The gravity is 1.8 times our standard. The atmospheric oxygen concentration is near toxic levels for most known species, and the geological instability would require evacuation protocols on any civilized world. He clicked to the next image, showing the grizzly bear they had encountered. The native predators include creatures weighing up to 800 kilograms with natural weapons capable of penetrating light armor. The humans live among these predators as a matter of routine. But surely the humans have technology to protect themselves, suggested Science Officer Velen AR. That is the remarkable part, sir. They require no special technology. Their physical capabilities allow them to survive in these conditions naturally. Kethvar showed video construction workers performing their duties. What you see here is routine manual labor. These humans are lifting masses that would require power assistance for our species, working at heights that would require safety equipment, and operating in environmental conditions that would be classified as hazardous duty. The presentation continued with footage from the playground and the demonstration by the military personnel. With each new revelation, the Zephyrian officers became more silent and thoughtful. The human children, Centaur added, engage in activities that we would classify as advanced training exercises. Their educational system appears to be designed around building physical and mental resilience to extreme conditions. Are you suggesting, Commander Vexthal asked slowly, that the entire human species consists of what we would classify as elite special forces personnel? Sir, I am suggesting that our elite special forces would be considered average civilians by human standards. The silence in the conference room was complete. Finally, Vexthal activated his communication system. Communications Officer, establish immediate contact with High Command. Priority Alpha transmission. The holographic display lit up with the image of Supreme Admiral Colfax, the military leader of the Zephyrian Empire. His expression was already serious, suggesting he had been briefed on the unusual nature of this transmission. Report, Commander Vexthal. Supreme Admiral, we have completed first contact with the species known as humans. I am recommending immediate suspension of all expansion plans in this sector and initiation of diplomatic protocols at the highest level. On what grounds? Vexthal gestured to Kethvar, who began his presentation again. This time, he included detailed analysis of human capabilities compared to known galactic species. The numbers were staggering. Human strength-to-weight ratios exceeded those of most military-grade species. Their endurance capabilities were off the charts. Their environmental tolerance was broader than any species in the database. Supreme Admiral, Kethvar concluded, I believe we have encountered the first true deathworld species in galactic history. They have evolved not just to survive on their world, but to thrive in conditions that would destroy our finest warriors. What are your strategic recommendations? Colfax asked. Sir, any military action against Earth would likely result in catastrophic failure. These humans may not have advanced space technology yet, but if they ever develop it, they would represent a threat to every civilized world in the galaxy. You are suggesting they are inherently hostile? No, sir. Quite the opposite. They appear to be peaceful and cooperative by nature, but their capabilities are so far beyond our own that any conflict would be unwinnable. The Supreme Admiral considered this information for several minutes. Are you certain of your assessment? Sir, I have reviewed all available data. I stake my career and the honor of my family name on this assessment. The humans are not like other species we have encountered. They are what other species become when evolution is driven by constant survival pressure. Colfax made his decision. Very well. I am authorizing immediate implementation of Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was the Empire's highest level of diplomatic engagement, reserved for species that posed existential threats to Zephyrian civilization. It had never been used before. Commander Vexthal, you will remain in Earth's solar system as our ambassador. Establish a permanent diplomatic mission and begin cultural exchange programs. I want to know everything about these humans. Understood, Supreme Admiral. And Commander, Colfax added, make certain they understand that the Empire comes in peace. The last thing we want is to give them a reason to consider us a threat. 3 months later, Ambassador Helen Roberts stepped out of her shuttle onto the surface of Zephyria Prime. A former Navy test pilot, Helen had been chosen to lead Earth's first interstellar diplomatic mission because of her experience with extreme conditions and high-stress situations. The Zephyrian delegation that met her was impressive. Supreme Admiral Colfax himself, along with full honor guard of the Empire's finest warriors. They watched nervously as Helen walked down the shuttle ramp in nothing more than a standard diplomatic suit, showing no signs of distress despite being on an alien world. "Greetings, Supreme Admiral," Helen said with a warm smile. "Thank you for the invitation to visit your beautiful homeworld." Colfax bowed formally, a gesture of respect normally reserved for visiting royalty. "Ambassador Roberts, the honor is ours. How do you find our gravity and atmosphere?" Helen looked around, breathing normally despite being in an environment that had taken the Zephyrian species millions of years to adapt to. "Very comfortable, thank you. The gravity is quite pleasant, actually. Much easier on the joints than Earth normal." The Supreme Admiral gestured toward the transport that would take them to the capital city. "We have prepared accommodations in our finest facility. We hope it will be adequate for your needs." "I'm sure it will be wonderful," Helen replied. "Oh, I brought some gift from Earth. Traditional foods and beverages to share. I thought you might enjoy trying some genuine Earth cuisine." She opened a small case containing items that would have required hazmat handling on most worlds. Coffee with caffeine concentrations that could be classified as stimulants, chocolate with compounds that were mildly toxic to most species, and spices that registered as chemical irritants. How thoughtful. Colfax managed, wondering how he was going to safely dispose of what were essentially biological weapons disguised as snacks. As they traveled toward the capital, Helen chatted casually about her journey, the beauty of space, and her excitement about cultural exchange. She seemed completely at ease, unaware that she was being treated with the kind of respect and caution normally reserved for weapons of mass destruction. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison was settling into his new role as humanity's first interstellar communications coordinator. Aurora Base had been expanded into a full diplomatic facility, and Jake found himself managing communications with dozens of alien species who had learned about humanity through the Zephyrian network. The messages all followed a similar pattern. "Greetings from the Alterian Republic. We have heard remarkable stories about your species and your homeworld. We would be honored to establish peaceful relations with your people. The Crystalline Assembly sends greetings to the human species. We have been informed that you are a unique people with extraordinary capabilities. We seek knowledge and friendship. From the deep space nomads to the humans of Earth, we have heard that you live upon a world that would challenge the gods themselves. We salute your strength and offer our friendship." Every message contained the same underlying theme. These alien civilizations weren't just impressed by humanity. They were awed by them. Earth had become legendary throughout local space as the impossible world where the impossible people lived. Jake leaned back in his chair and looked out at the stars through the observation window of Aurora Base. A year ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Now, they were the most famous species in the galaxy, and they had achieved that status not through conquest or advanced technology, but simply by being themselves. On his desk was a message from the Galactic Council, an organization that governed relations between civilized species. They were formally inviting humanity to join as a member species, with full voting rights and representation. The message was respectful, almost reverent in tone. "We would be honored," it read, "to welcome the representatives of Earth to our assembly. Your species' unique perspective and remarkable capabilities will be invaluable to our collective wisdom." Jake smiled and began composing humanity's response. He wondered what other surprises were waiting for them among the stars. But one thing was certain. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most extraordinary people are those who don't realize just how extraordinary they are. And somewhere in space, on dozens of worlds across the local arm of the galaxy, alien species were quietly revising their military doctrines, diplomatic protocols, and exploration policies. A new power had emerged, one that didn't even know it was powerful. The age of humanity among the stars had begun.